to get in here, dirty air will play a huge factor, I guess.
Absolutely, and he's one of these kind of setup nightmares that drivers have and relish in the same breath. You've got some very, very twisty technical sections throughout this circuit, but also you've the long sweeping section from turn 11 right the way through to the end of the lap, and then beginning again at turn 1, much the same as Circuit of the Americas. In a similar vein, you've got some very long high-speed sections mixed in with some very twisty sections, so how they set their car up is absolutely crucial, but again, following another car is exceedingly difficult at these kind of speeds. But keeping an eye on qualifying now with less than 3 minutes to go. Kevin Ryan currently topping the timesheets with a 1:10.867, the only man at the moment to get under 1:11. He was also leading the way in the online qualifiers preceding this event, so all eyes are on Kevin for a very strong result.
He had the chance on route number 2 already, where he was the pole setter, if I'm not mistaken, and that got a disconnect very early on in the session, so this is his last chance to actually get his ticket to the final, and I think after all of that, he would deserve one, but it's still about actually finishing a race and get that ticket yourself.
Indeed. Doing the hot laps is one thing, but it's how you perform under race conditions, which, as you quite rightly say, Kevin Sandy didn't have much of a chance to prove previously. So looking at further down the field, Mark Behrens, who was third in the online section, just 2/10 down from Kevin previously, finds himself even bettering, or very nearly matching it to 2,000ths of a second his online time. He currently sits at 1:11.007, which is just shy of a 10.5 behind Kevin Ryan. Currently sitting in third, Antonio King-Kodiak, who's unfortunately had a bit of an accident with something. He's missing his front wing at present. So I've been keeping an eye on him as the qualifying session has proceeded, and he's had a few difficulties, it seems. So whilst he seems very quick, we'll have to see whether he's able to maximise and keep that consistent speed going forwards.
Yeah, looking through the lineup of today's race, obviously we've got 20-7 this time, so nearly a full pack. I see Ivan Fernandez, definitely a name that we heard of McLaren Shadow before. The same for Alessandro Lopez, obviously. But further down the list, is there anyone else that we might remember from the previous thing? I think Vladislav Pavlov. We definitely had him in one of the previous rounds.
Yeah, Pavlov was a little bit late joining this particular session, but has gone out there and got on with the job, setting a fairly decent representative time. Maybe the whole field is separated by a mere smidge over 2 seconds, which may sound a lot in standard racing terms, but you've got to realise just how competitive this field is and how many people have already taken part in the preceding events leading to this point, and how many laps there were and the times that separated the wood by the smallest of margins. So again, as Pavlov is currently struggling, I think, a little bit at this circuit. Not every circuit will suit every driver's style, of course, but it's going to be interesting to see how well these drivers convert their qualifying positions into their race pace. So they may well do well now, as I've just realised Mark Behrens has actually closed in to 66 thousandths off the back of Kevin Ryan's time. So that, again, rather tantamount to how close these times are. And again, third through to, really, third down to 10th is only 2/10ths there.
It is a very, very close race here already in the qualifying that just ended in time. We maybe should highlight that this is one of the tracks we could actually either run high or low downforce settings. So there will be, on some of the battles, especially on the straight, a huge difference in how the car behaves and how they get out of the turn and how they actually move down to turn 1, for example, during the race. And that might change just the whole battle and how you actually try to overtake someone.
Indeed, as Kevin Ryan has just improved on his already very impressive pole time. He's now down to 1:10.790 as the checker flag has come out. So anyone that has not been able to improve on the time has no further chance to do so. Jumping up to 4th, James Sadler as just putting a 1:11.349. So again, very impressive there. And yeah, so again, Kevin Ryan really does seem to have got that kind of setup, driving style balance absolutely right for this circuit. But like we mentioned already, it's setting the pole time is one thing. It's getting the consistency there, as we've seen some of the drivers already struggle with that. it's getting the job done through the amount of laps they require them to do. That is where it's really going to come down to. And let's hope that Kevin Ryan has a bit more stability as his connection this time, so we can really see what he's made of.
And we got the results now. That is the top 10 on your screen right now. Obviously, Kevin Ryan in the Mika Hakkinen livery. That might help. I mean, he got the title back then on this car. Kevin Ryan tries to do the same. Alexander Lopez, he managed to get 6th. Ivan Fernandez up to 8th. That will be very good for him. Florian Gaia also managed to get inside the top 10. And Devin Brownie, he will close up the top 10. I'm just wondering, is that the Devin from the Studio 397 Discord channel? If that's the case, I'm really afraid. He can be very quick, and 10th is definitely not what he's looking for then.
Could well be. And again, we're seeing some differences in how the online qualifying times sit, where they now sit, with the exception really of Kevin Ryan once again sitting on the top of the tree, actually bettering his online time by about a hundredth of a second, but even still able to find yet more speed. But for instance, Florian Gaia was actually second behind Kevin Ryan and now finds himself in 9th. So again, we're really going to see how well these drivers, they now have a 5-minute warm-up session before the race begins, just to really hone where their braking points are, where they can push the car to the absolute max. Exactly all the little nooks and crannies that they can kind of work out of their strategies now. Now is the final opportunity. Not every driver will take advantage of this. Some people kind of just choose to sit and relax for the last few minutes. Some drivers will choose, and indeed vast majority of the drivers are looking to get back on track just to get that little bit extra time to get any particular advantage they can, and with the prize on offer to them, any wonder.
Yeah, I guess everyone now wants to try. The fuel is actually racing for the race. So that is definitely something you always have to keep in mind. Changing from a qualification setup to your race setup, and managing tires later on in the race, managing your fuel, managing your pace, and obviously also manage your opponents. I hope that Kevin Ryan this time will have a stable connection and actually shows us some of that. But with Mark Behrens right behind him, I'm pretty sure he's in for a hard time and not an easy start here.
No, indeed. As the drivers get underway, they scream off towards turn 1 at an alarming rate of knots, and it's a very tight right-hander followed immediately by a 90-degree left. So they've got to be very, very careful how they negotiate that particular section. We could well see a few discarded front wings or what have you if someone gets their braking point wrong. But again, this is where this last-minute practice kind of reminds the driver how the car feels when it's very heavy. Of course, when the race starts, the tyres are fairly up to temperature, but of course the car is absolutely full of fuel, so it feels so different. And these guys would have been hitting the hot laps very, very hard to get to this stage, so they're running the car very light in its optimum condition. And it's just these little reminders of, okay, the braking point's this much further. May not be much, may only be a metre or two, but it's enough that if they miss the braking point, particularly when the pack is that condensed, and when it's such a heavy braking zone that it is into turn 1 here, then yeah, you could have a mighty accident on their hands if they're not just reminded to just bring it back a little bit. But every racing driver wants to get any kind of advantage they can. No one, well, they shouldn't be wanting to have an accident into turn 1, but I mean, even the greats make mistakes. So it's just one of these things that this warm-up session can really serve to help remind them of.
Well, that is definitely true. I mean, we all know that if you brake delayed, especially in the beginning of the race, you find yourself on the outside. There are so many cars on the inside. It's basically like trying to find a parking spot in the center of London because there are cars everywhere. Then there's no chance for you to fit and get back on the racing line and get back up to speed. So you will definitely not just lose one position. You'll probably lose a bunch of them. Something you don't want to do. The other thing is there's no temperature in your tires. And having these cars where there's no traction control on them, it is, riding the aggressive horse, basically. This car can really become a drift car. The only downside to it is it does not counter-steer as good as a drift car.
No, there's not much of a steering lock in these things. They've got a turning radius of a boat, pretty much. They don't turn too well. But then they've got such an incredible amount of Mercedes horses looking to get down to the tarmac, and all these little things that it really comes down to weight. That's the biggest difference they'll have when they come from qualifying to race. Sounds fairly obvious, of course. They have a very full fuel tank, but you've got to bear in mind how many laps they've done in qualifying trim, unless, of course, the drivers have taken time to practice in race trim, which, of course, we won't know. We won't know that until really the race is played out. That will be telling on who has done the practice. Again, coming back to Kevin Ryan, he's very, very clearly very quick, but if he's putting very little practice into the actual race setup, how the car feels, we could see him fly off the road, overestimate his braking point into turn one, fly off, trying to do the full oval circuit, for instance. It's one of these things that when it comes down to it, when under the pressure of the race conditions, that's when the real greats will shine.
It will be interesting to see who finds his rhythm first. I mean, we all know for a racing driver, it is that zone you want to be in, and the feeling of the car. It might change. I mean, it obviously changes throughout the race because grip changes, your tire changes, and all the temperatures. But it is really, really important that you feel safe in your car and that you have the belief in the car giving you the grip that you expect in every single corner.
Indeed, but also it's the close quarters racing with your opponents. That's the one thing that they can't particularly practice. These are all the very best. Let's not forget that. It's very easy to jump into a public server and try and practice it, but you're against people of varying different skill levels. Here, the skill level is so condensed. So this is where it's really going to tell. And of course, the race is never won in turn one. It's only ever lost if you get it wrong, of course. So it's going to be how these guys handle the pressure. They know what they're up against. They have an idea of where they stand in the pecking order as far as everyone else is concerned. But that could all go completely out the window if there is a major incident into turn one. But also, if different people handle the turn one pressure very, very differently.
I need to get into the race, actually. They are starting, just getting off the line. Round number 3 is open by, and now let's see. It seems like Philippe actually lost a lot of place in the back already. Mark Behrens, he made his way up to position 1 already. Kevin Ryan, not really a good start. Had to be on the outside. Off turn 1, I see Kevin now being off the track at all. What happens here? There's a lot of action going left and right by now. And it wasn't actually Kevin. Oh, I'm happy about that.
No, Mark Behrens had an absolutely stunning start off the line. Kevin rather bogged down a little bit, so he may have overestimated how many horses to put down straight off the line. But Mark Behrens now in that orange car has broken away by a good half a second ahead of Kevin Ryan. He's had an absolute stormer. But right behind us, Kolarek and Tavares in very, very short succession. Again, the field is, of course, a very tightly packed. We have had a fatality already. Arwin Taruna didn't start, I don't think, or certainly won't be finishing. And Jos Aranedna, oh goodness me, Jos Aranedna is off. That is his day done. What a shame. He was actually a very high qualifier. He qualified 4th in the online section and was fairly up the field. But look at Mark Behrens on the opening lap. He is really stretching his legs. That's nearly a second already he's opened up at the end of lap 1. But it looks like Tavares is shaping up a move onto Kolarek into the turn 1 again.
Yeah, but he's not the only one actually that had an amazing start. Also, Devin Browning, he managed to go up to 6th, starting from 10th, if I got that correctly, from the start. So he was one of the winners of lap 1 for sure. Ivan Fernandez also won 1 spot, going up to 5th. That is the current group, and we see Luis Felipe Tavares. He tries to just stick to his podium position. Once again, it is the top 10 that you want to finish in the end to go through to the qualifier final. So Alejandro Lopez would currently be the last one that has the ticket that he wants, with Roma Tisink right behind him. So we're just lap number 2, and everyone being that close. I'm pretty sure we're in for huge fights here.
Oh yes, it's a 30-minute race here. There's no compulsory pit stop, but of course some people may be forced to do so depending on if they pick up damage. But what a great start then. Mark Behrens getting it again. I can't believe how quick Mark Behrens is storming away at the front. That's over a second, 1.2 between himself and Kevin Ryan. Tavares, now that he has cleared Kolarek, is now beginning to stream on. But look at the train of cars behind Antonio Kolarek in 4th. That's a lot of pressure he finds himself on, because he's got to just calm himself down and hit his lines. There's still time in the race. If something does go wrong, you would have time to correct it. But it's difficult to ignore the fact you've got so many cars behind you. You look in your mirror and you just see a big train of them. It does really play in your mind. So we'll see how well these guys can cope with the pressure. Oh, and that was Devin Brown looking like he was having a look on the inside. That decided not to follow that move through. You do have to know kind of when a move really isn't on. And you know the less experienced will try and make a gap out of anything, and that's where you'll start to discard carbon fibre.
Oh, Devin spins his car around. I just see James Sandler is crashing right into him. Devin seemed to be a bit too aggressive into that turn on the braking, and now it's Ben Horrell and James Sandler trying to find around. James Sandler actually went onto the grass. Devin's the lucky guy that got out of this. Ben Horrell won the position. Stephen Dyan won the position, and Sandler now back to 10th. Wow, that was a quick one. I'm sorry for that.
No, carry on. And Gabe Roma, Tissing and Matthew Williams really quick behind as well. So Sadler can't just concentrate on what's ahead of him as well. But look at that. Look at Sadler. That's actually Lopez as well defending. You've got nearly 4 wide coming into turn 1. Oh, this could be interesting. Little bit of wheel banging going on between Sadler and Lopez. Sadler's gone up into 9th place, demoting Alejandro Lopez. Williams has gone ahead of Tsing as well in that particular. Oh, and I think Tsing had a big moment there coming into turn 4. Quite a few drivers had a similar problem there throughout the practice that preceded qualifying. So we could well see some cars off into the dust there. But wow, nice move then by Sadler to try and regain some lost time.
Yeah, he definitely got unlucky there with tapping Devin Brown after he spun the car around, which was definitely on Devin alone. There was no one else around him when he spun that car. But James, he definitely wants to get back. Look at how he really tries to bring back his car inside the top 10. He's currently still in it. 9th is all right. Will be enough.
Indeed.
But you want to be on the safe side.
Of course. I mean, every driver wants to be towards the sharp end, of course. But these guys have got to realise that you've got to play the numbers. You've got to do what can I realistically do. If you start pushing too hard, you start overdriving the car, that can be just as bad as just missing your braking points. As Steve DM gets past Ben Horrell before they even get to the braking point of turn 1. Behind that, Sadler under pressure by Lopez again. He sticks to the inside line, defends that for turn 1. Oh, that's Lopez that's overdone it. He's lost 2 positions. That's Williams and Tsing, although Lopez has managed to get back inside after Tsing coming through turn 3. So Williams now in that last qualifying position. It's Lopez looks like he's really struggling to get back into the rhythm.
I'm actually a bit surprised. Stephen Diem, he was really quick on that start-finish straight, and we see his car and the car of Ben Horrell sometimes getting a bit of smoke out of the engine on the back. So I was surprised at how strong his engine was down turn 1, but it was enough to actually get the position of Ben Horrell's hands. And James Sadler now, he got a bit more breathing room, I would say, with Matthew Williams being a bit further back after Lopez did that slight mistake when he looked into fighting with Sadler. So I hope that he actually has some time now to find his rhythm back again. But there's some more smoke coming out of Ben Horrell. Hopefully he can still let his car survive until the end.
Well, indeed, yes. That could be a problem, as that's Matthew Williams has just flown past James Sadler into 9th. But Sadler with a big move on the inside of turn 1. He's not prepared to let that go. He's got the outside for 2, then he's going to have the inside for 3. Hangs on to 9th place. That is brilliant driving by the light blue Shadow liveried car of James Sadler. Very nicely done, but of course the more they fight, the more that's going to bring Alejandro Lopez into the mixture as well. So they've got to be careful they don't fight each other too hard. There may be a bit of strategy coming in later on if they just choose to kind of just stay in position at this point and fight later on, because they don't want to throw their chances away too early. But again, once that visor comes down, once the race is underway, the racing instinct kicks in, the red mist descends, and they are going to try and get every potential advantage they can. But when they're towards the sort of bottom end of the top 10, that's so crucial for what this race represents. They do have to be careful about how they do it.
Yeah, Lopez definitely wants to get back on that top 10 position, but also Devin Browning, he actually got a lot closer to even Fernandez. Seems like Fernandez currently not on pace with everyone else around him. Stephen Diem, he got a bit further away from Ben Horrell. He definitely had to that gap being created. There was no chance for him. Still Matthew Williams and James Settler, they're not done yet with all their fighting. Obviously, they need to be aware, like you said, of Lopez in the back. But it seems like Devin Brown will probably maybe launch an attack at the end of this lap, because he really gained a lot of time on Fernandez.
Absolutely, he did. And a few laps ago, Roman Tissing was actually in that battle. He's actually out. He's had suspension damage and has retired. That's another that we've lost quite a few. We have 20 cars remaining in this grid. That's 6 cars, I believe, gone now. So the Indianapolis really taking its toll on some of these cars. Mark Behrens continues to lead now. 2.2 seconds is the gap, and then it's 4.4 seconds between Ryan and Tavares. The top two really breaking away in leaps and bounds. Tavares not under immediate pressure at the moment. Colorette has got Ivan Fernandez and Devin Brown in fairly short order behind him, so not under immediate pressure, but has got quite a few cars already behind. Steve DM in 7th has got some breathing space between himself and Ben Horrell, whose car is randomly smoking. But yeah, Matthew Williams still has got Alejandro Lopez, who is now in that position. James Sadler has actually fallen down to 11th. So that's just how costly one mistake can be. He's got time to correct it at the moment, but he doesn't want to be making those mistakes too often. It comes to the psychological game as well. If you start overthinking what you're doing, you think, oh, I made a mistake here before, I need to do this differently. As long as you make the correction fairly quickly and fairly conclusively, that can be fine. But all these little things can really play on a driver's mind and really can hamper their performance.
Yeah, definitely. And Settler, he dropped twice already. I mean, he dropped the 10th, then went up to 9th again, now back onto 11th, so he will be very unpleased with that, being out of the top 10, while Lopez now found contact again to Williams, really closing that gap, trying to get away from the 10th spot, which is way too risky. Up front, it's still Mark Behrens creating a huge gap onto Kevin Ryan. It really shows a strong performance in terms of lap times. While I see Devin Brown is up to 5th, is Luis Felipe Tavares down to 7th. There must have something happened, I guess, because Tavares was way up front.
Yeah, he's lost 6 seconds or so in that particular lap. He was very slow coming through turn 12.
He tried again. Yeah, he wanted that position back, overshot it in turn 1, and now Ben Horrell is right behind him. So Tavares, instead of trying to have that comeback move, we actually overdid it a bit. And now it's the pink and black car of Ben Horrell locking onto his rear wing, going inside, trying to make a move here. But Tavares, he could defend on the outside and work really well for him. A bit of sliding coming out of the turn. Horrell still close. Williams also closing that gap. Right behind that is Lopez already. If these guys are not stopping by now, I'm pretty sure that even James Settler will be back in there.
Absolutely. I wonder if Tavares has got damage or some kind of problem, because his car is all over the place and losing time. Look how much that's condensed. These 3 cars, Horrell, Williams and Lopez, there was a fair gap between them a few laps ago. But now it looks like with Tavares, with that issue, has really condensed this particular patch. So Tavares is going to be under a lot of pressure now as they come through turn 12 onto the long bank 13. So we're going to see, he has managed to get a pretty decent drive. Horrell's under pressure. There goes Williams on the inside to take 9th place. He's still in that qualifying bracket. Lopez didn't get a particularly good drive. Looks like Tavares did get a good drive. He needs to get back into his rhythm. He'd rather demonstrated what we were talking about earlier, just overdriving the car, pushing too hard, too soon to try and make up lost ground. Yeah, as long as he's within the top 10, that's, of course, the all-important area he needs to be in, which he is. He's obviously in 7th. But he's very conscious of the fact that he's got 3 cars really bearing down on him. He just needs to settle down. He needs to get back into the rhythm and start to reclaim, just hit your marks, hit your braking points, and let your raw speed do the talking. If you just push that a little bit too hard, you'll be off into the grass again.
Talking about raw speed, I'm pretty sure that Ben Horrell's now suffering from more engine damage, because it's really screaming and smoking for help down on that Horrell car in the back. Lopez gets closer every single time. We saw that Horrell actually lost the position to Williams on the start-finish straight because his car wasn't that powerful anymore. And with more smoke coming out on every single of those straights down here in Indianapolis, I'm pretty sure that he will just praying by now and hoping for the motor gods to save his engine and let it survive until the end of the race, because if Lopez passes, then he's on 10th position, which is the last one to get a ticket. And we see Lopez already looking up the inside in turn 1, just showing himself in the mirror, not yet really in attack or range. But Horrell, he will be sweating by now because he sees that he's losing performance and that he will lose one spot after another and maybe even dropping out of the qualification spots.
Indeed, he realises there's probably not a lot he can do about it. He's just got to drive the best with the machinery he's got. He's doing a fairly good job of hanging on to the back of Matthew Williams, but whilst they are battling, James Sadler is really closing in on them. So he will be putting pressure on. Of course, he wants to get back into that top 10. Everyone within it wants to defend their particular position. So he is doing everything he possibly can to get back into those all-important top 10 spots. Further up, also, battle is forming another four-way battle. 3rd to 6th, that's Kolarek, Fernandez, Brown and DM. They're in a particular battle, not quite as condensed as the previous battle we were just talking about, but there's another battle going on, and Sadler really is on the back of Lopez now. He's going to be in that slipstream kind of area, and there goes Lopez on Horrell before he's even gone through turn 13. Oh, that's very close to the wall, and that is indeed Lopez up into 9th place. Ben Horrell's hanging on to the inside though. He's going to try a braking maneuver into the inside of turn 1. He's gone for it. Lopez needs to hang on to the inside for 2, but no, Horrell actually defends it. Here comes Sadler to try and do something about it to get back into the top 10. He's on the outside of Lopez. He's just nosed ahead very briefly, but Lopez manages just to defend. And this is exactly what Lopez didn't want. He did not want to be stuck in a battle that compromised his potential to hang on to the top 10. Sadler is trying then to make his car as big as he can in those mirrors as they now come through turn 7 onto the short straight towards the twisty section of 8 through 10. And indeed, I wondered if Sadler was going to make a move in the inside of 8. He opted not to, but he is keeping his car he's actually choosing different lines to keep his car very obvious in the mirrors of Lopez.
Yeah, definitely. We see different approaches to every of those corner in the infield, but also up front we see Tavares
Tavares is out.
Suspension damage. He is out of the race by now, which means James Sadler is back inside the top 10. And I just want to say that Antonio Kolarek now needs to have a look in his mirror more often than before, because even Fernandez is right in there, and even Devin Brown made his way up to the top group more or less. We're not counting in Mark Behrens and Kevin Ryan because they're basically off the chart, leaving them in the dust, that's for sure. But this will be our next fighting group, with James Sadler not being done yet with Lopez, and Ben Horrell, yeah, that guy is still praying because he's still in there.
He is indeed. He's creating a nice smoke screen in there. Oh, and again, Sadler having a look on the inside, coming into 9 and 10, but it's not really much of an overtaking spot there. Now through 11 onto the long section, 11 through to 13 and turn 1. This will be a good opportunity for Sadler. Oh, wow, that was a big one. That's actually 7 and 8 they've just gone through. So again, you can see the different lines that Sadler is choosing to take. Whether he's trying to do a move or just making himself obvious to Lopez is, of course, whether he'll be aware that he's in the side of the top 10, but that's not going to stop him pushing on. And absolutely fair play to, we've lost another one. Matthew Daniels is also out of this race. They are dropping quite heavily now. We may only have the top 10 left at this rate before the race is done. We have gone over the halfway stage, but still great battling going on. The 8th, 9th and 10th, Horrell, Lopez and Sadler. And Brown.
I'm sorry, Devin Brown just tapped even Fernandez. He wants to make that move, but Stephen DM looked at those both fighting in front of him and was like, oh man, I can be part of that pack. I can be part of a highlight video here. But Devin, he really tried to dive in there. And Fernandez looks like he got closer to Kolarek before. We saw that. But now he's really dropping in pace. Maybe it's even the tires.
Could well be, and that's given Kolarek a big bit of breathing space. And as Fernandez and Brown did have that issue, then DM is trying to hang on to the back of them. Matthew Williams is not far off the back of him either. And then you've got the battle, that three-way battle now that we've been talking about, Horrell, Lopez and Sadler. And Horrell is under a lot of pressure then, coming through slow turns 9 and 10. He knows he doesn't have to do too much, just hold his line through here, but he's going to be under a lot of pressure. 11 through to turn 1 again. And actually, Lopez did not get a good drive out of 11. Ben Horn had a stunning drive. It's going to be Sadler then, getting in line to attack Lopez, coming through turn 1. There he goes. He's going to have that done way before before he has to brake. Lopez hanging on to the inside line. He could well look to try and outbrake Sadler. Here we go again, coming into turn 1. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? Sadler just notices ahead as they come through 1, through 2. Sadler's still got the inside line. Oh, and just manages to shut the door on Lopez. Nicely done, but Lopez thinks about it coming through turn 4. And James Sadler is back up into 9th.
If they just continue fighting, might even be joined by David Beranek. He's now the first one, basically, waiting for either someone dropping out of the top 10 or getting back. There is still, there's quite a gap between him and Lopez, so he's not super close nor in any attack range. Might not even see them just at the end of the straight, but they should be aware of that. One mistake, one spin in those cars in the infield, and David will be all over them to get inside the top 10, so they should be aware of that. I'm having a quick look again at the whole top 10. Currently, it seems like everyone tries to just, get breath once again, getting some air before they start into the second half of the race, because we are halfway through. We're in 18 minutes now into the race of 30 in total, and once again, James Sadler now being back onto Ben Horrell, down to turn 1, start finish straight. He might look up the inside. He's trying to dive in there. Ben's not even defending on the outside. Yeah, definitely not down on power of that engine. And James Sadler, there's someone spinning around. That was
it's Williams.
Lopez.
It's Williams and Brown. They've come together. They've both lost their noses. Sorry to cut me off there, Randy, but yeah, Brown is in big trouble. Exactly what you were saying. David Beranek was waiting for the mistake to happen. It has happened. Devin Brown, no nose on that car. He's going to have to come in. Matthew Williams the same. So he's got no chance of being able to make it to the end of the race like that. So that's 2 cars going to have to come in. And that could it depends how long they're going to be in the pits for. Of course, Florian Gaia could benefit from that. That could bring him into the top 10.
In that way, it seems like Brown actually got onto Fernandez in that fight, and then they might clip each other and found themselves in a crash, and Matthew Williams connected to the same. He's now running really slowly through the infield. Devin is a bit quicker, even without the front wing. This guy's not given up by now, but it's obviously David Beranek. He was just waiting for that one thing to happen to get him inside the top 10, and he even gets 2 spots, which means Matthew Williams currently, even without nose, would be in the top 10, but he and Devin Brown are now both going for the pits. Florian Gaia, he will come around last turn by now, which means he will definitely get the 10th spot off the hands of Williams and Brown. Niranya Kumar also DNF'd, so he's out.
Oh.
Cameron Rocha will still be in there. He's down a lap. Same for David Kalakse. So I really have to say, Devin is still in. Matthew Williams decided to pit his car for the whole day, basically. He will not return. So Florian Gaia found himself inside the top 10 just because someone up front decided to not play it smart, but go for individual positions rather than just for the pure qualifying.
It's worth keeping on in there. I mean, you never know. We were looking away at the point that Devin had that particular incident, and he was very comfortably challenging for the top 5, and suddenly he's now right the way down there, 11th, and 20 seconds at least behind that all-important 10th position now in the hands of Florian Gaia. But also, Alejandro Lopez has gotten past Ben Harrell. He did the same move. James Sadler now up to 5th position. Steve Diem is right ahead of him as well. So that has really shaken up the top order, with the exception of, again, the top 2, because we haven't looked at them all race long. Mark Behrens still leads by 2.3 seconds over Kevin Ryan. Antonio Kolarek, though, now with a big, healthy gap behind. He's going to have to really push. It'll be quite an ask to close down 18 seconds in... well, that'll be 9 minutes, so we'll see if he's able to close that gap down. It looks like Kevin Ryan is beginning to reel in Mark Behrens a little bit, so there may well be a lead battle before we're done. But at the moment, the next battle is James Sadler. He's actually working his way past some back markers that could hold up James a little bit, but Lopez is on his tail as well. Battle for 5th still rages on.
And we're not done yet. We still got those 8 minutes left, and I'm just trying to calculate if there is any chance for Devin Browner to get back inside the top 10. And let's have a quick look at Florian Gaia's lap time. So the quickest I can see here is a 1:13.6. That was lap number 12 for him, so he was a bit quicker then. He's now down to 1:14. He also did a 1:20 in between. And if we have a quick look at what Devin Browner does, his fastest lap is a 1:13.6, so not quicker than the guy in front of him. And now he is a lot slower. There was a 2-minute 2 during the crash, 1:13.8 before the crash, but also 2 1:15s. So I'm quite surprised by the lap times he had. 1:60 now on the last lap he did. That wouldn't be fast enough at all to get back onto Florian Gaia.
Indeed, it would not. He's going to have to rely on another issue to happen to our lead runners, as Sadler has gotten past. As actually Guido Scrinzi that is in the mix there. He's a lap down from these guys. So he could well be going to help to disperse the pack a little bit. We're saying Sadler has made his way through. Lopez is right with him. That's going to help Ben Hall to potentially close in on Alejandro Lopez. And the field behind him, so Ivan Fernandez now down to 8th position with David Berenak and Florian Gaia now in the top 10. They are fairly spread out now. It's taken quite a while to get to a point where they have actually spread out. But yeah, Kevin Ryan is really charging on. He's now less than 2 seconds behind Mark Barron. So either Mark's having to just back off a little bit, or Kevin has just kicked it up again. He's now chasing after that win.
Yeah, Kevin could actually go for that, and obviously we would love to see that at the end of this race. But I have to say, there's one guy, I'm pretty sure, that sits in his cockpit right now thinking, man, how can I be that lucky? And that is Ben Horrell. We saw how much his car was down on power. He was still trying to hang on in there. He was fighting for every single centimeter he could have on the track. And so far, that really paid off, because he's still in 7th position in front of Ivan Fernandez, who was part of that crash a bit earlier. There's a 3-second gap between them. So even if Fernandez might close that gap, there's enough space for Horrell to still make the final next week. And that will be something I will be surprised on with that engine damage early on in the race.
He'll be very pleased at that. And that's also part of, a driver's psyche, as how they, to get through adversity. It'd be very easy for some people just to throw in the towel and assume they'll never make it. But Ben is really showing, just get on with it. Push the car as much as it'll give you, as he makes his way past Grillo Sprincy as well, coming into turn 1. So he's cleared that back marker. That's Ivan Fernandez now about 3.1 seconds behind Ben. So just got to hold his line. Now everyone's pretty much just got to keep their cool, keep their pace in the closing minutes, and that can be just as much pressure as the opening laps as well, because these certainly the guys in the top 10 know that they are where they need to be, and that can add some pressure of don't make a mistake. That kind of mentality can also really play on their minds. This is adding to Devin Brown's day. He's actually being caught by Mark Barron's, the leader. So from Devin being well within the top 10, really challenging potentially for that top spot, he's now about to be lapped by the race leader.
Yeah, that is definitely set out. He might even be fast enough during the fights there to actually be on the podium alongside Barons and Ryan. But we didn't see the incident, but I really fear that it was Browner pushing for that position of Fernandez and then just connecting to cars. And we all know how that turns out, right? It's normally your insurance you call right after that. So that was unlucky, and it might show that he was just trying too much. We all know, yeah, it would be boring if the top 10 wouldn't go for the win. Definitely, so I appreciate that. But on the other hand, you don't want to be handed that loser spot just because you decided that 4th would be better than 5th or 3rd would be better than 4th.
Indeed, he could have been a little bit unlucky. It could have been the person ahead of him made a mistake and he just couldn't get out of the way in time. So we don't know, as actually Grillo Scrincy has retired his car as well. So only 14 cars from our starting grid of 26 remain. But that's the nature of racing. You push as much as you think you can get away with, and sometimes you just push it a little bit too hard. Matthew Williams, which is very unfortunate. He was the car behind that incident and just got caught up in it. So I imagine Devin is feeling pretty glum at the moment in the cockpit of the purple and black Shadow car. But he's pressing on nonetheless. He isn't giving up. He is hoping for a mistake from those ahead of him. As Kevin Ryan is closed now to just over 1.5 seconds behind Barons. I think Mark may have made a mistake somewhere. He's lost about 4 cents in this lap alone. So he could well be struggling a little bit in that car.
No, it's actually really Ryan being super fast, but now his last lap was a 1:12.7,
Wow.
while Mark Barons did a 1:13.0. So there's no one slow in this. It's just Kevin Ryan trying to find an even quicker pace. But Mark Barons did some 1:12 right before that. And if you have a look at his time, his second lap already was 1:12.6. And then he dropped, it was 1:12, 12, 12, 12, 12, then 13 low and 13 mid, up to 12 again. So this guy is as consistent as he can be. And just from seeing it, I would actually ask race marshals if this could be AI.
It's consistent and it's quick. But looking from Kevin Ryan's perspective, he has really gotten in striking range of Mark Barons. He's got two cars ahead of him. I think that's going to be... I'm just trying to figure out who that is actually directly ahead of Mark Barons on track. It's Pavlov and... so Pavlov is one of them. I don't know who the other one is, but either way, that could really scupper Mark Barons' charge for the win, as now Kevin Ryan is within a second of that orange car. He's lost the lead to him on the opening lap, but we are very close to the end of the race. This is going to be very much do or die for Kevin Ryan to try and convert the pole to win. But Kevin Ryan's connection at least has held on. Mark Barons ended up pressing on as much as he can. There's just under 9 tenths between the top two. Can Mark Barons hold on just for another lap?
I guess he got that on his radar that Kevin Ryan is closing that gap. Sometimes it's just about managing it, but it is who's in front of Mark Barons right now. Is that the car?
That's Pavlov that's directly ahead, and that is actually the car directly ahead of Pavlov is actually Devin Brown. So I would think then that Devin's probably going to be spared the indignity of being lapped as Pavlov gets well and truly out of the way of the lead too. But that has helped Kevin Ryan close right in to Mark Barons. That checker flag can't come quick enough for Mark. I think it is actually out and waiting for him. So he's just got to hang on for a few more corners and the win will go to the orange car of Mark Barons.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. We all know if you want to finish first, you have to finish first. And currently, that would still be in the hands of Mark Barons. But there will be a long, long straight that might opens up a chance for Kevin Ryan. We see Mark Barons going all the way down there to the tarmac, making sure that there's not as much slipstream as possible before. But it will be Mark Barons winning round number 3 of the R-Factor 2 McLaren Shadow qualifier. Kevin Ryan finally manages to qualify for next week as well with second position. Third will go to Antonio Kolarek unless Stephen Diem is not catching him now onto the start-finish straight. They're going through the last corner. Steve Diem is still behind him. There will be a bit of slipstream available right before the finish line, but no, it is Antonio Kolarek getting the last spot on the podium. Stephen Diem right behind him. James Settler, he will be happy after all the problems he had and the many positions he dropped down the leaderboard. Now he is inside the top 5. Ben Horrell, even with an engine that was basically extinct already early in the match, he still managed to hold on to it. Alejandro Lopez on the 7th. Even Fernandez, their crash with Devin, down to 8th, but also in the top 10. David Beranek and Florent Gaia, the two lucky guys here to get inside the top 10 by mistakes from the leading guys. And unfortunately, we lose everyone else, which also means we will lose Devin Brown. Tried his best, really showed an impressive pace early on in the race. Even did some 1:12s in his last laps. So that is, just to say that is the pace of the leader, 1:12.632 of Devin.
He never gave up, did Devin Brown, but in the end it gave him nothing, as he does indeed finish outside of that crucial top 10. But great effort by all of our drivers that stuck in there to the end. They never gave up, and what brilliant racing did they show all of us.
Yeah, that was an awesome showcase of talent, performance, and definitely racecraft. We saw some of the maneuvers. They were more than spectacular and impressive, I would say. I liked it. So, tell me, like, is it what we expect from the final next week? Like, such close fights and even someone catching up onto the leader in the last lap?
Well, we can but hope is that the range of talent that we're seeing throughout all of our qualifying rounds, of the very top 10 of each race going through. Again, the cars have been a little bit different. Some cars suit others better than some. But even still, the very fastest drivers are the ones that are going through. So indeed, the finale next time is going to be magnificent. I have no doubt at all.
Yeah, and we will be back next week with the McLaren Shadow R-Factor 2 final, which is not the Shadow final yet. We're not there yet, guys. But we're finishing up the R-Factor 2 qualifier. Of course, there is another R-Factor champion already qualified for London, which is a Chinese driver that qualified in the HTC VR qualifier that was also being held on R-Factor 2. But we'll add another one from this competition, so R-Factor is the right game to be in. And as I said earlier in the show already, if you want to be part of R-Factor events and R-Factor 2 tournaments, then better get some practice in. There will be more coming up. If you happen to be in Madrid, actually, you might even saw that on Madrid Games Week already. There will be something coming. It will be exciting, and that's only the start to our program of events and esports in R-Factor 2 for 2019. So everyone should be prepared. And that's it for today. Thanks to Chris, obviously, for joining me here in the last race in Indianapolis before we head over to the final. Don't miss that. Get prepared. Get your snacks and drinks and all your friends ready for next week, and then join us there.